Hey everyone, Rua here. I have a very special video this time. It's one that's been a project I've been working on for a solid month, and now that it's ready I can share it. About 2 months ago I was contacted by a player through my Discord handle who is also a subscriber. His name is Lepton. Lepton told me that he had won the Nomad Mog Bonanza and had chosen the Yagyu Darkblade, Ninja's option from it. He also told me that he did not have the time to commit to the game at this moment, so he gave me his account credentials so I could experiment with it. I've therefore spent the past month especially gearing and powering up Lepton to top tier endgame standard. Before I divulge my findings, I'd like to say that the purpose of this video is to convey the power of a remarkable weapon, what it does to the ninja job, and speculate whether it should be earnable through future content. I know that this weapon is extremely rare, and I frankly feel honoured to have been given an opportunity to use it. Even if it is not widely available as it stands, in the event it does become obtainable through other means, people working towards it will now know what it is capable of. Okay, let's get into it. If you weren't following the forums during the announcement of the Nomad Mog Bonanza and the initial testing done on the Ninja forum, credit of which goes to Nentechi, let me explain what this weapon does. The Yagyu Darkblade has the unique effect of turning all a ninja's typically self-targeted Utsuzemi spells area of effect, which affects their entire party. The number of shadows given to party members is reduced by 2, but this goes off the ninja's baseline amount. That means that Utsuzemi Ichi gives 1 shadow, Ni gives 2, and San gives 3. While this sounds like a moot point, remember that most AoE physical special attacks from monsters are negated by 2 to 3 Utsuzemi shadows, and with the Yagyu Darkblade both can be rotated on the party, so it can be used to reduce incoming damage to party members substantially. The headline act of the Yagyu Darkblade though is not apparent at first glance, but when you see what is just beneath the surface, things get really interesting. Under its Yonin stance ability, its tanking stance, a ninja's Utsuzemi spells generate increased enmity. Normally this only generates enmity based on the spell affecting the ninja, but the Yagyu Darkblade extending Utsuzemi spells to the party also multiplies the enmity generated by the number of players in range. If you're a veteran rune fencer, it's the same as the Epiolatry taking Liment, extending it to your party and multiplying the enmity. This means that under Yonin stance, the Yagyu Darkblade is capable of generating absolutely massive amounts of enmity very quickly. We have to break down the math at work here to illustrate this point. Under Yonin, Utsuzemi gets a baseline enmity value of 160 cumulative enmity and 480 volatile enmity. With plus 100 enmity, which is very easy to reach, this becomes 320 and 960. With plus 200 enmity, more of a stretch, but again achievable with a Nagi or Fudo Masamune, this becomes 480 and 1440. Let's highball it to go with 200 enmity and all 6 party members receiving shadows. So multiply those last values by 6 and we get 2880 and 8640. That's just for one cast, but now things get absolutely bonkers. Yonin's augmentation to Utsuzemi's enmity applies to all 3 tiers of the spell, so that's Ichi, Ni, and San all get this value and can be cast back to back within 7 seconds, so multiply that number again by 3 and we get 8,640 cumulative enmity and just shy of 26,000 volatile enmity within 7 seconds. That's just mental. That means a ninja using this will almost cap volatile enmity immediately and cap cumulative enmity within a minute, if that. Paladin and Rune Fencer especially can both spike their enmity quickly, but doing so requires them to burn through all their abilities, which have lengthy reuse timers, so this feat cannot be sustained. Ninja, on the other hand, can rotate through their 3 Utsuzemi spells every 10 seconds provided they are being haste capped. There's just no way Paladin and Rune Fencer can keep up with that. Being unable to quickly spike enmity is a problem ninjas looking to tank have been dealing with for as long as I can remember, and this weapon single-handedly fixes that problem. It actually does even more than that. It turns Ninja into the best enmity generator in the entire game, above any other job, and by quite some distance. Certainly other tanks will keep up at first, but soon enough the reuse timers of their abilities will start to take their toll. Let's keep this constructive though. AoE shadows do add a new dynamic in content where two tanks, or a tank and an off-tank are the norm, such as Dynamis Divergence. If it's too dangerous for the ninja to establish an AoE enmity register themselves, with blue magic, it is possible, if not optimal, for the second tank to get initial aggro, register enmity before the ninja tears off ahead and spikes their enmity into orbit. This frees up the other tank or off-tank to grab more targets and repeat the process, or for the off-tank to contribute to DPS. This trick of not requiring the initial enmity register also works with bards using Horde Lullaby. That's actually the best use of it in this way I've found. You see, Horde Lullaby registers enmity toward the bard on everything it lands on, but also puts them out of action with a sleep effect. The danger is that if the Horde Lullaby was the first action taken on the targets, then the bard ends up generating extra cumulative enmity since it was the first action taken. Meaning that if the next actions taken before waking the targets up are not substantial enough to draw enmity onto the tank, then the bard could be in trouble. This is often what gets bards killed on Aegon Halos and Odyssey. This is also partially why tanks usually sub blue mage for the AoE enmity register, but Ninja does not need it. I should clarify that point. Ninja does not need blue mage sub, but it could make life easier when solo tanking, as the mitigation and killer effects they can get from the sub are substantial. I'm going to try main tanking segment runs on Ninja sub blue mage soon. If it goes well, I'll be sure to upload a follow-up video. What could have really hurt the Yagyu Darkblade's potential would have been if lower tier casts of Utsuzemi did not provide enmity, since they would not overwrite existing shadows from a higher tier, but fortunately this is not the case. Even if the shadows given do not take effect due to what is a very outdated and frustrating mechanic that still needs patching, it still gives enmity, so a ninja using the Yagyu Darkblade can go ballistic to reach the enmity ceiling. When the ninja is not in a tanking role, the Yagyu Darkblade still has great use. Utsuzemi's San gives 3 shadows and Ni gives 2, but recall that I mentioned earlier that 2 to 3 is all that's needed to cancel AoE physical attacks. So this fits nicely into stopping irritating, if not potentially lethal AoE physical attacks from wiping your party. DPS not having to stop to recast their own shadows, let alone not having to sub-ninja themselves for survival's sake, could be an overall DPS gain. The damage mitigation potential of the Yagyu Darkblade really cannot be overstated. I would still say that the majority of danger encountered in endgame today is magic damage, but not to the same extent it once was. Buffs to mitigate physical damage exist across several jobs, but none exist that outright negate it. That was always the main draw of Utsuzemi from a ninja sub-job, going all the way back to a level 75 cap era. Buffs like Gallant's Roll and Indie Barrier are almost never used unless specifically called for, and when they are, they usually entail a group DPS loss. I think these are the main positive notes for the Yagyu Darkblade. It provides Ninja with the means of stellar enmity gain and control while also safeguarding their party members from AoE physical attacks. It's an absolutely brilliant weapon for its purpose. Having heaped praise on it just then, there are some drawbacks I encountered while using it. The first is that Ninja's enhanced enmity generation from Utsuzemi is tied to its Yonin stance. Multiple and full dispel attacks have become increasingly common in today's endgame. So if you lose Yonin early in a fight before its reuse timer is up, then you're gonna struggle to maintain enmity. Not entirely, but the effect will be substantially hamstrung. The second is that Ninja is heavily reliant on evasion buffs from a bard for the highest levels of endgame when facing sustained and heavy physical attacks, especially from multiple targets. Without these mambos, then anything with multi-hit special attacks or weapon skills is going to tear through your shadows with frightening speed. Ninja is not completely vulnerable without their shadows for a few seconds. Migawari, Yonin and a proper set will save you, but it has caught me out a few times while making this video. Given the insane enmity generation of the Yagyu Darkblade, you would better be ready for a lot of aggro coming your way. You use this thing, you are committed to tanking. Paladins and rune fencers need to tailor to their block and parrying defenses to survive onslaughts like this, and they can do that well enough themselves. But ninja needs mambos from a bard. A lot of this footage you've seen so far has been without mambos, so it can be done without, but mambos would have made my life a lot easier. A problem here is that evasion has a hard cap of 80%. A 4 out of 5 chance of evading an attack or a hit of a given special attack or weapon skill are good odds, but not a guarantee like a paladin achieving a 100% block rate. Finally, the Yagyu Darkblade is not the best weapon, main or offhand for optimal DPS. Its AoE shadow effect is incredible for party support, but if you are not in the tanking role for your group, the Kunimitsu will outperform the Yagyu Darkblade for DPS easily. Here's why. Offhand hits on hybrid weapon skills especially have a large impact on the damage of the weapon skill as a whole, so your offhand weapons attributes do count. The Kunimitsu, when maxed out, has 65 attack, 20 magic attack bonus, 5% weapon skill damage, and base magic damage. The Yagyu Darkblade has none of these, and the difference in damage shows. Compounding this further is the fact that stopping your own DPS to constantly reapply party members' shadows, which have a substantially lower count than your own, will hurt your DPS. So to wrap this up, let's address a question looming over this video. Given my experience using the Yagyu Darkblade, do I think it should become an obtainable goal players can work towards in future? Yes, it should. It turns ninja into the best enmity generator in the game, by far. Finally gives it some excellent party mitigation support that it lacked compared to other tanks. And even when the ninja is not being called upon to tank, it can instantly pivot to the role if the group's main tank goes down. What balances it out are that ninja needs Yonin active to get the most out of its enmity generation, and that can be pulled out from under them. Mambos and/or a lot of skill are needed to reliably tank high-end content, and mitigation support for their party comes at the cost of their own DPS. Do I think it will become obtainable? I do. If not from future endgame content, then I would put good money on it being one of many possible scenario rewards from the Voracious Resurgence storyline. The Nomad Mog Bonanza weapons are nicely spread across all jobs. I could be completely wrong, of course, this is all speculation. But in the event it does become obtainable, hopefully I've given you the information to make an informed decision. On a final note, I would like to thank Lepton for entrusting me with his account so this video could be made. It was a remarkable act of faith, and I hope that I've done that faith justice. Okay, I'm signing off. Next time I'm going to go over my thoughts on the master level progression system. Until then, take care everyone.